Hello, my name is Richard Holloway. Welcome to the second edition of the Edinburgh Festivals chat show Stage Door. Today I'm standing in the famous Charlotte Square Gardens, where the Edinburgh International Book Festival is in full and abundant swing. This year we welcome hundreds of authors from all over the globe, including 4 Nobel laureates, 4 Booker Prize winners, and many debut authors. So let's just go inside now and chat to one or two of our guests. We're in the midst of the Edinburgh August Summer Festivals with a record number of visitors this year. Today we're joined by guests from the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo, the Fringe, Book and the International Festivals. I'm delighted to introduce our first guest who is performing at this year's Edinburgh Festival Fringe, Cora Bissett. Cora, welcome to Stage Door, we're calling this. You've got a very controversial play at the Fringe, so tell us about it.
It's a play called Roadkill. It tells the story of a young girl who's been trafficked from Africa to Scotland to be exploited in the sex trade here. It's based on a true story of a girl whom I came into contact with in Glasgow, who had been trafficked at the age of 13. So this girl whom I met in Glasgow and spent some time with, had been brought here when she was 13 and had been basically held captive in a flat until she was 17 and forced to prostitute from there. It's a horrific story, and I've tried to, the piece that we've made is based very loosely on her story, but I've done a lot of research around it, and it's really an amalgamation of many similar stories to hers. Sadly, there are many that are very similar.
So are you the writer as well?
No, I'm not the writer. I've directed and devised the piece with many collaborators. There's a brilliant young writer, Steph Smith, who recently graduated from Queen Margaret, and she collaborated on the project, providing a lot of the story chunks, but it's not just one long play. It's sometimes the visuals, the brilliant visuals by Kim Beveridge, carry a lot of the story, so it's been a really collaborative effort.
It's what they call a site-specific show. Tell us how that works, and because I mean you're really in the middle of it, aren't you?
You are. Yeah, it's much more than a gimmick. I really wanted to place the audience in her world, essentially, and make it uncomfortable, because I guess I really wanted to push home that this is happening on streets and houses around us. It's very often in domestic locations that just have nothing on the outside that would let you know, and these girls are just stuck in the flats. And so I really wanted to put the audience in her world and feel that entrapment with her, and you can't really escape. I felt that was an important kind of immersive experience to really put you in the core of her.
And you actually take people in a bus, as it were, behind her, and this motherly woman whom she thinks is more or less adopting her. Yeah,
I did a lot of research online and through the Scottish Refugee Council, and it seems to be a very particular relationship that comes about in many of the African trafficking stories, where it is always a woman and she'll maybe befriend the family. And of course, you know, when there's extreme poverty in a country, any chance of a better life and opportunities for someone's child, they're going to trust this woman and give her over. So you meet the two characters actually on the bus, and they're just chattering away in front of you, and so you kind of just eavesdrop on their conversation, and essentially you're on the journey with Mary, the character, on her route to the flat. So you're kind of following that journey as she arrives in the city, and then to eventually what is to become of her.
But Cora, it's not just kind of a piece of social challenge, this. I mean, this is theatre.
Yeah, absolutely, first and foremost. I think documentaries and newspaper articles can deal with, you know, the facts and figures of this subject matter in a really clear, concise way. But I think with theatre, the tools that we have at our disposal is to make people really feel and connect with a character first and foremost. That's what we have, that's what we can do. So essentially, with a brilliant team of actors, we've really tried to create these very three-dimensional, believable characters. And the protagonist, Mary, who is the traffic girl, you care for, you just want to take her out of there and save her and make her safe. And a testament to that was one evening we had two really experienced policewomen in the audience, who were catching each other's eyes across the room and literally trying to work out a strategy plan to get the girl out of the building. They told me afterwards they had just forgotten that was an actress. They just believed for a moment, you know, their brain had just believed in her and her world. And I think that's I don't think you can throw an issue at people and say, care about this. It's, you know, you can care about it intellectually, but I think it's when it gets to your heart and your guts, that's when you actually want to do something.
And the play is part of a new programme called Made in Scotland. Tell us about, how does that work?
It's a brilliant scheme which enables Scottish-based artists to bring shows to the festival, because anybody who's in the arts knows it costs an arm and a leg to get your work on at the festival, when you have to hire a space here and get your marketing and pay your actors and deal with all that. It's an enormous amount of money to put things on. So if your show is chosen to be funded to put on, that just opens up all the doors for you. But as well as that, they're putting you on a kind of showcase platform where many, many international promoters are invited along to see you. So it really puts Scottish work on an international stage and puts us in contact with these promoters with a view to getting Scottish work out there, raising Scotland's profile in an international context.
Cora, congratulations on a great show, and thanks for talking to us.
Nice to meet you, thank you.
My next guest is Blake Traynham from the Citadel Pipe Band, playing at this year's Tattoo. Blake, welcome to our little programme.
Thank you, sir.
Tell us a little bit about the Citadel first. It's a military academy, isn't it, which is essentially a high school in uniform, is that right?
Well, actually, it's a university, basically. It has all the branches of the service which for your ROTC in it, which you're not obligated for service, but you get a degree as at any other university, and you have the opportunity to take a commission in the services.
But tell us about the pipe band, because it's a famous pipe band.
Well, yes, sir. It's definitely one of the star attractions in Charleston, South Carolina. We were started by General Mark Clark in the 50s, so we fairly young to the pipe. To the band itself and to the Citadel, but it's been a great experience for me. Every Friday we have a parade.
Are you a drummer or a piper?
I was actually a piper, and ended up taking the drum major role to fill in for someone, but I just kind of stayed in the position, and it's been a blast ever since to get to know both the drumming side and the piping side.
And this is the second time your pipe band has been to the Tattoo, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We came in '91. It was a great experience. We've actually, kind of gotten to talk to some of the guys that have came in '91, and it's a great experience for us. It really is.
What does it feel like coming out across the drawbridge at the castle into that great auditorium?
It's amazing. To put it into words, it would be hard. You're coming through the smoke and the lights, and then all of a sudden it all clears and you see roughly 9,000 people in front of you. It's something that definitely overwhelms you.
Are you seeing anything of Edinburgh and Scotland while you're over here?
Definitely. We've had the opportunity to see numerous things. The festivals that are going on, it's just so much to take in. You feel like you don't have enough time in the day to do it.
Well, it's been an honour having you. Are you going to come back again if you're invited?
Definitely. That would be such a joy. I will definitely come back as one of the alumni to sit in the stands and watch, but to be able to perform has been outstanding.
Blake, it's been a great pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. My next guest is Flavio Oliver, who's appearing, performing, singing, doing any number of things in one of the outstanding performances at this year's international festival called Montezuma. Flavio, welcome to our little show.
Thank you, Richard, for your invitation. Thank you.
Is this your first time in Edinburgh?
Yes, it's my first time. It's a beautiful city. Yes.
Are you getting any time to see the town to get to?
No, impossible, because we are all the time with the rehearsals and then preparing the premiere and the second performance. Yeah? Yeah.
And it's about a historic event 500 years ago. We know a little bit about it. Tell us about the story and how complicated it's been to stage. It must have been an extraordinary challenge.
Moctezuma was the last emperor of the Aztec Empire. No? When the Spanish arrived in 1510, It was a very strange situation because it was the cycle 52 for Mexican people. Every 52 cycle of years, they expect a great change and disasters. So they are opened for the change. There were approximately 600 people enter in a city of 200,000 people, Tenochtitlan, a big city in this moment. There wasn't a city in Europe so big in this moment.
Horrible things happened after that.
Absolutely, absolutely, because Cortés was a very ambitious man, and Moctezuma was very pleasant with him, opened his city. You know, it's a very strange situation. In only 3 years after the conquest, all the city was changed. You know, the Tenochtitlan city was composed of beautiful temples. Fantastic.
And it was quite a fierce religion, wasn't it? I mean, wasn't there a lot of human sacrifice in it anyway?
Yeah. Before the arrival of the Spanish people, there were 2 weeks in which 20,000 people were sacrificed. It's terrible, the sacrifice.
And Europeans have done a lot of that. We've tended to think that our cultures were so superior we could go and...
But remember the Inquisition in Spain and Italy. It was terrible no? In the name of God. I think the important concept in this opera is the meeting between the others, the different manners of thinking. No, you know.
Where are you going to next?
Next, I'm going to Madrid with the same production, then to Hamburg, and then Mexico with this Moctezuma production, and return to Versailles in Paris for finish this great tour of Moctezuma.
You're a busy man. It's been a great honour having you in our city at the Edinburgh International Festival. Thank you for joining us.
For me, absolutely for me. Thank you.
Good. My next guest is an American novelist called David Vann, and it's an enormous pleasure to welcome you to our little show, David. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Is this your first visit to Edinburgh?
Yes. It's unbelievably beautiful here. I didn't know what to expect, and it's pretty spectacular. I've spent all summer in Europe, in France, and throughout the UK and Ireland, and I think this is the most spectacular place I've seen, actually.
And how many events are you doing at the book festival itself?
3.
You're doing 3. Now, tell us about them before we actually talk about your wonderful
I had a
novel.
conversation last night with Gary Young and Alan Little talking about the end of the American dream and America's role in the 21st century. And then I have an event this evening with Willie Vloughton, both talking about our books. He's another American author. And then I'm on a panel that Ruth Padel has put together tomorrow, talking about fathers and sons and several other issues.
Let's talk about your book.
Sure.
First of all, how did you come to write it?
This book is fiction. It's has my father's suicide in the background. My father killed himself when I was 13. But it's made into fiction, and the way that works, to give an example, most of the book is a short novel called Suquan Island. The book overall is Legend of a Suicide, but there's a novella within it. And I grew up in Alaska, but then my parents separated. I lived in California, and my father asked me to come spend a year back up in Alaska with him, and I said no. And then 2 weeks later, he killed himself. And so I felt tremendously guilty afterward and wondered if I had said yes, if he would still be alive. And so that short novel within the book is the boy saying yes. And so I finally ended up with this book. But then no agent would send it to editors for the next 12 years. And so I thought it would never be published. I actually went to sea and became a captain and I didn't write for 5 years because I was so discouraged. And so now to have the book come out, and it's out with Penguin
So
UK.
how did it finally kind of see the light of day? Did you hit on a good publisher or an agent
No,
who
I
believed
sent
in
it to a contest where it's read blind, and whatever wins the contest has to be published. So they didn't have a choice. So it was published with no editor or agent agreeing to publish it.
Would you honor us by reading a bit?
Thank you. I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to read just a couple minutes. So this comes from the first story, which is set in Ketchikan, Alaska, which is where I spent my childhood. When the pickle slices had settled more, they rocked like sleeping fish just above the pink and blue gravel, and the real fish rocked silently beside them, as if in gentle groves of eelgrass and sunken lily pads. The image was beautiful, and in that moment of beauty I strained forward. I pressed my hands and face close to the glass and gazed into the mute black core of one of those silvery eyes. I felt as if I too were floating, gently rocking, oddly out of place, and in that flicker of a moment I caught myself feeling the rocking and perceiving myself perceiving, realized that I was I. This distracted me, then I forgot what had distracted me, lost interest in the fish, and after slapping my feet across the linoleum of the kitchen floor, passed again into the soft, dark rain.
My gosh. And it took about how many years for that to see the light of day?
Well, this first story, I actually wrote in just a day. I worked on the book for 10 years, but the pieces that I kept came very quickly. But then for 12 years, no agent would send it out, and so I thought it would never be published, and that was kind of a discouraging time. But it was fun to go to sea and become a captain. Mm-hmm. That was fun.
To go back to the book festival, are you going to have time to go to any other events?
Yeah.
Are you here for another couple of days?
Yeah,
or?
I just went to Faye Weldon's event and actually had dinner with her last night, and it was really wonderful to meet her.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's exciting about the festivals for me, getting to meet authors.
Yeah. Well, David, thank you for coming to Edinburgh. It's been an enormous pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, that's it then. I'd like to thank all our guests for joining us to talk about their experiences at the Edinburgh Festivals. Join us next time when we'll be coming from the Edinburgh International Festival. Thank you and goodbye.